Opinion Decoding Munirs Outbursts. It all leads back to Iqbal's ideology. The leader of Pakistan's mercenary force, Asim Munir, delivered a series of rants in April, almost literally on the eve of the Pakistan-backed terror attack in Pahalgam that exposed the country's repeated and desperate attempts to remain afloat and relevant. Rapidly sliding into the category of an extreme rogue state, Pakistan needed such a misadventure to justify its existence. Munir's outbursts reflect the very essence of Pakistan, a false state built on a fraudulent ideology that fuels its anti-human politics and calculatedly savage, almost animalistic behavior. At the BRICS summit in Goa in 2016, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, without mincing words, aptly and presciently described Pakistan as the mothership of terrorism. Those countries and entities that have shown sympathy towards Pakistan must now realize that this mothership of terrorism can easily come and dock on their shores as well. No one can be safe until the mothership itself sinks. Let us briefly delve into the diabolic mindset that drives the Pakistani deep state. Asim Munir is merely a part, an ephemeral bubble in the long, festering stream of diabolism that has oozed from the architects of Pakistan's deep state. From Jinnah's direct action to Zulfikar Bhutto's infamous and irrational call for waging a thousand-year war against India, to Zia-ul-Haq's efforts in laying the deeper foundations of Pakistan as a radical rogue state with Islamism as its lifeblood, the pattern is consistent. Add to this the Yahya Khan-led Pakistan Army's genocide in East Pakistan, the mass killings of students and Bengali intellectuals, the elimination of minorities in the region, and the deliberate withholding of relief in the aftermath of Cyclone Bola in 1970, which killed 600,000 people in one night. All are manifestations of a deep-seated, diabolical obsession with shaping Pakistan into the new epicenter of terror and radicalism. This mindset shaped the very demand for Pakistan, as conceived by its political and intellectual proponents. Munir and the Pakistani deep state have relentlessly tried to keep those ideological props well-oiled and broadcasted in order to keep themselves alive and kicking. Two interesting episodes from history are relevant here for our discussion. In a rare meeting with Sri Aurobindo in July 1950, thinker, polymath, and leader K. M. Munshi 18871971, then Union Minister for Agriculture, recounted a striking remark made by the sage on Pakistan. Recognizing Munshi as his former student from Baroda, Sri Aurobindo granted him a special darshan and audience, during which they discussed both personal and national matters at length. Munshi records Sri Aurobindo as saying that Pakistan has been created by falsehood, fraud, and force, and that it must be brought under India's military ambit. That very triad, falsehood, fraud, and force, remains the foundation of Pakistan, and this is becoming increasingly evident. The effects of Prime Minister Modi's deft, far-sighted, and sustained diplomatic outreach over the past decade are also becoming clear. Except for a few near-failing and anti-democratic states, no country is commiserating with Pakistan or falling for its false propaganda of victimhood. The other interesting anecdote from history is of the poet laureate of Pakistan, Muhammad Iqbal 18771938. It bears reiteration now, in order to expose the minds and mindset which pushed for the creation of Pakistan. One of Rabindranath Tagore's foremost biographers, Prabhat Kumar Mukhopadhyay 18921985, notes in Rabindra Hibanakatha that when Tagore arrived in Lahore on February 14, 1935 for a 2-week visit, Iqbal, himself a native of Lahore, scooted from the city in order to avoid meeting Tagore. Iqbal's conduct was hardly surprising, given that he had already begun composing the subversive hymn of Pakistan. Why else would a poet decline the opportunity to meet Tagore, who by then had attained iconic status and symbolized national unity and cultural nationalism? Tagore's 2-week stay in Lahore was nonetheless significant, particularly for his meetings with Sikh community leaders, who received him with great honor and appreciation. In 1935, at the time of Gurudev Tagore's visit to Lahore, Iqbal was already well into articulating his demand for a separate Muslim state. Historian Bimal Prasad notes that, in his presidential address at the 21st session of the Muslim League in Allahabad in December 1930, Iqbal spoke of concentrating the bulk of Indian Muslims in one specified territory. This, Prasad writes, contributed significantly to the evolution of the thought process which finally culminated in the demand for partition. In a letter to Jinnah in June 1937, Iqbal asserted that the Muslims of North and Northwest India, where they were in a majority, must have their own state, on the basis of the principle of self-determination. In his foreword to the booklet Iqbal to Jinnah, which compiled Iqbal's letters, Jinnah acknowledged that his views were substantially in consonance with my own and had finally led me to the same conclusions and found expression in due course in the Lahore resolution of the All India Muslim League, popularly known as the Pakistan Resolution. Prasad argues that Iqbal's 1930 address strongly underlined some of the basic points which were later used as the main ideological props of Pakistan. By 1937, an ideologically possessed and driven Iqbal, having shifted focus away from his sublime poetry, wrote to Jinnah, "I tell you that we are actually living in a state of civil war which, but for the police and military, would become universal in no time." He also asserted that the idea of a single Indian federation is completely hopeless. Reporting a conversation he had with Jinnah around the same time, Lord Brabourne, then Governor of Bombay, recorded that Jinnah's policy was to preach communalism morning, noon, and night, while PM Modi's vision of a new India and of Viksit Bharat is powered and driven by the vision, legacy and philosophy of the likes of India's poet laureate, Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, and is based on his vision of unity and self-reliance, the dark and failing nightmare that is Pakistan continues to be shaped by its poet laureate, Iqbal, who spoke of division, separation, conflict, and despair. Iqbal never articulated any substantial or enduring civilizational vision. Unlike Tagore, he failed to influence or shape global thought in any meaningful way. While Tagore is celebrated across the world, his relevance only growing with time, Iqbal remains entombed, trapped in a decaying sepulchre of his own making. That sepulchre continues to incubate and unleash anti-civilizational ideas and forces. The lies peddled by Asim Munir, like those of his predecessors, are churned out from that very death-bound vault. Swipe left for next video. Alongside the physical resistance and response to the wraith state of Pakistan, which must continue unabated, the battle of the mind and of ideas against its founding ideology must also persist with equal resolve until that dark, nether, and nefarious sepulchre is permanently decimated. Nan, the author, is Chairman, Dr. Syama Prasad Mukherjee Research Foundation, and a member of the National Executive Committee, BJP. The views expressed in the above piece are personal and solely those of the author. They do not necessarily reflect NEWS18's views. Latest blogs.